Hey, Ryan, I got a question for you.
What's the question?
Did fantasy playoffs championships leave on the cart with Kyler Murray injury?
They just may have. Hopefully you got that first week bye, so you can figure some stuff out.
Well, I guess the good news is at least there'll be a lot more people who lose in fantasy playoffs next week and can play Call of Duty with Kyler Murray.
Hey, Purdy will be available though.
That's true. It's time for garbage time. Kyler Murray owners, enjoy that Call of Duty time when you lose in your playoff matchup with Kyler Murray next week. Welcome into Garbage Time Fantasy Football. Tonight, we recap Week 15. Just kidding, we're only in 14. And the devastating injury we just saw in Monday Night Football. How are you doing tonight, Ryan?
Good. Do you think they'll make like a double XP weekend just because Murray won't be playing next week?
I'm sure they will, and I'm sure there's going to be a Kyler Murray Call of Duty skin coming out this weekend because he's going to be getting that double EXP this weekend.
It's bad. I mean, like DeAndre Hopkins was just like crushing it. Fantasy managers held out for half a season for him to come back, and they got like 2 weeks of it. And now he's going to have, I don't even know the guy's name, throwing him the ball.
Former Texas quarterback?
Yeah.
Colt McCoy. All right, guys, if you like what you hear on Garbage Time Fantasy Football, make sure to like and subscribe to the show here on YouTube. We are also live on Twitch and Twitter and are in many audio formats on Apple, Spotify, Google, Pandora, Amazon, Iheartradio, Tunein. And you can leave us voicemails where, Ryan?
At www.garbagetimef.com.
Absolutely. And make sure to like and subscribe to the show and join the heckling fandom. And Ryan, if you want to win this autographed Gridiron Miles Sanders card, how do you do that?
Who, not to mention, had a killer week this past week and is now broken into the top 10 for running backs.
Absolutely. So let's get people a Christmas present.
Yeah, like and subscribe. Leave us a Apple review, 5 stars preferably, and comment. I've joined the heckling fandom. #Jets suck.
It's really depressing, but I can't argue with you after this past weekend. The defense looks good. Too many injuries, though.
Hey, Mike White, though, is like the Terminator, dude. He just
Mike fucking White is a dog.
Keeps coming back.
We'll be fine. I think we can still make the playoffs. Your team just needs to lose tonight to Colt McCoy, if that's okay. And without further ado, let's get into the news.
Yeah.
News updates.
Guys, if you have any questions for your fantasy rosters that have now hopefully made the playoffs, good job, heckling fandom. Feel free to leave those on Instagram at Garbage Time Fantasy Football or at garbage_time FF. Let me get that word salad out again, garbage_time FF, where you can leave those questions right to us. You can also do it live on the streams or in the comments below after the videos. First little bit of news I have for you tonight, Ryan, is we have to monitor the health of T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd going forward. Who are you more concerned about going into fantasy playoffs?
All I know is this is the second time T. Higgins has burned me. Where he's been questionable all week, and they say he's going to play, and he comes out and plays a couple snaps. He did it back in week 5, and now they just did it again in week 14. So now I am saying if T. Higgins is questionable on Friday, I'm not starting him. I don't care if they say he's going to get every pass thrown to him that coming Sunday. I'm not trusting it.
Corey Davis suffered a head injury during the game against the Bills and is probably now going to be in concussion protocol. What is your thoughts on availability of Corey Davis over the next few weeks now that we saw that he had a decent game last week, but now is all banged up?
I don't know about with you, but after the way the start of the season went, it seems like concussions are minimum 2 weeks out at this point.
It's feeling like that. So you're not even probably going to get him on your roster for your fantasy championship, you don't think?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Mike White suffered rib injuries, and according to his status, even after going to the hospital because he's a damn dog, he still made the plane trip back. And according to Robert Saleh, he is going to start against the Lions. Do you love him in this matchup against the Lions this upcoming weekend?
I do. Like if he's legit playing, then yeah. I know with quarterbacks with rib injuries that they can get them in a brace and stuff, and you've seen quarterbacks kind of battle through that.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully they're able to keep him off the turf, and he can play the full game.
And during that game, you did see him ripping passes right down the field, even with those rib injuries. So, they'll get some shot in those ribs, hopefully not with Tyrod Taylor's doctor, and he'll be ready to go. Dameon Pierce's health is now a concern. He suffered an ankle injury early in the fourth quarter and did not return. Is this unfortunately going to be a Rex Burkhead backfield going forward?
I think it's just going to be a committee. If Dameon
It sucks.
There, I'm out on that backfield if Dameon Pierce isn't in it. Dameon Pierce is kind of just getting back into fantasy relevance, and then gets injured. So,
yeah, all points it sucks. That's all you got to say about it. Bellinger suffered a rib injury in the third quarter. Thoughts on him at the tight end position going forward to fantasy playoffs?
Yeah, it sucks because he was a guy we mentioned last week that we didn't mind because of the amount of targets he got. Only ended up putting up 5 points. And has a tough defense with Washington next week, so you're probably going to look elsewhere, especially if he's banged up.
What is your thoughts about Russell Wilson putting his body on the line for a bunch of backups and going into concussion protocol?
Oh, man. Russell Wilson finally has a game.
Halfway decent game.
Okay, I lied. He's had one other game where he's a top 10 quarterback, but finally has a game, top 10 quarterback, and now he's concussion. So I'm assuming that takes him out of Arizona, which would have been a good matchup, and maybe puts him to come back against the Rams, which isn't an ideal matchup.
Any chance I deactivate him for the rest of the year?
Yep. So do what we've been saying with Russell Wilson most of the season. Just keep him on the waiver wire.
Yep. Deebo Samuel has a high ankle sprain, and it is thought that he may not even make it back until week 17, which would be the championship weekend. If he made it back to that week, would you still be willing to play him?
I feel like you have to, right? You have to put him in at least as like a wide receiver 3, right?
I disagree. His usage wasn't that good the last few weeks, and with this injury, I think it's concerning. I think I would keep him on the bench in a championship game.
Well, so this past week he was a fringe wide receiver 2, finished wide receiver 24. Mm-hmm. Week before that he was wide receiver 33, so fringe wide receiver 3. So yeah, there's a case to say don't risk it in his first game back from injury.
And it'll be the last game of your fantasy season.
With championship on the line. Yeah, it's true.
I don't think you can do it, man. I really don't. Too much is on the line that week.
Yeah, and it's Washington and then the Raiders. So, yeah, that's going to be tough.
Yeah, that's if you even make it if you're a Kyler Murray owner. And currently, let's go over that a little bit. Go get Mike White. It's a good matchup for you if you're a Kyler Murray owner. What's your thoughts on the Kyler Murray injury and what's going to result of it going into fantasy playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, it hurts pretty much every Cardinal on the team that's not James Conner.
Mm-hmm.
Probably, who just got a touchdown, by the way. So, yeah,
excellent.
I mean, you definitely see DeAndre Hopkins' value go down. Rondale Moore's value goes down. Yeah, not great.
No. Jeff Wilson suffered hip injury in the second quarter and did not return for the Miami Dolphins. And this is concerning because Raheem Mostert got all 9 carries in the first quarter of that game. What's Jeff Wilson's value going into fantasy playoffs? Does he even have any value should he return from injury?
Yeah, so, and I think you talked about it last week, or I may have talked about it with, no, I didn't talk about it with Ron. We haven't seen him in 6 months. I think that if one of them's injured, I'm definitely playing one. Like if Jeff Wilson's injured, I'm definitely playing Mostert. But if they're both playing, then I don't want either of them.
Let's ask Ron. Thank you, Ghost of Fantasy Football. We really appreciate that, Ron.
That sounds like an agreement.
Yeah, I think everyone's in agreement with that one. The fantasy specter strikes again and misses another show. DJ Moore is undergoing tests on his ankle. Do you have any updates for us on that, Ryan?
Let's see really quick. Day to day with knee sprain. They're calling it a knee sprain now. Originally they said it was nothing significant, but day to day. But he's another guy though heading into the playoffs. He's boom or bust. You know, he had 3 straight weeks where he didn't break the top 50, and then comes out against Denver and puts up wide receiver 1 numbers. So it's a risky game with him.
What's the confidence level?
On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say like a 4.
That's not very confident. It sounds like there's a lot of other options you'd like to play out there.
Yes.
Okay, and according to NBC Sports, if Aaron Rodgers returns to the Packers next season, Jordan Love is going to request a trade. So what's your thoughts on this for Dynasty, Ryan, for next season?
I love it. I have been sitting on Jordan Love for like 2 years thinking every year this is got to be the year that Rodgers hands it up. You can't blame the guy. He's been in the league, 3 years now, 4 years? Yeah, so it's time. But it'd just be something where you gotta monitor where he goes, and do you decide to see if there's a certain fan of that team and sell him a little high? Or
Do you feel like he currently owns any Dynasty value?
Probably not, honestly.
Okay, and late this afternoon, T.Y. Hilton signed with the Cowboys. Is there any fantasy impact for this at all?
No, I don't. No.
I would hope not. That would mean that the wide receiving core for the Cowboys is in bad shape, but I think this effectively ends the hunting of Odell Beckham to the Dallas Cowboys.
Yes. Once they found out Odell wasn't even looking at trying to play till January, I think they kind of stepped out of that.
It sure felt like that. Any other news you'd like to go over before we get into this recap, Ryan?
I don't know if you talked about it. It's on your list, but I didn't hear you talk about it. Tyreek Hill ankle injury. But they're saying he should be good to go for week 15 is what the reports are out of the Dolphins camp.
Ice and heating packs and Cheeto will be ready to go. And as we talked about last week, very underrated in the MVP status. Anyway, Let's get into the recap.
Playoffs?
But they are who we thought they were, and we let them off the hook.
You play to win the game.
First player in the good category tonight is Justin Jefferson, as he is many weeks. 11 receptions on 223 yards. Are you just going to win your fantasy championship if you have Justin Jefferson?
I know he got me into the playoffs this week. He bailed me out. The rest of my team did trash, and he bailed me out. So definitely a good one to have.
What does that look like for the rest of the season? Besides awesome.
Yeah, I mean, he's a clear wide receiver 1. Has Indy coming up, the Giants, and then Green Bay. So I mean, he's still going to get his.
All right, I'll let you trash my ass. I said DJ Chark wasn't going to do anything this week. 6 receptions for 94 yards and a touchdown. So what went wrong in my head? Obviously, I don't see the light, so enlighten me.
I nailed 2 of them this past week. Well, really, so he's a wide receiver 23 last week, jumped up to wide receiver 9 this week. Him and Goff just kind of seem to be clicking. Goff had a really strong game too. We'll probably talk about him a little bit.
Sure.
So it's just the trend you want to see. 6 targets last week, 7 targets this week. It went over 90 yards each game. So I don't think I'm saying he's a surefire wide receiver 3, but he's definitely like solid flats wide receiver 3, but can clearly get you the upside if it's in a solid game script. He's got the Jets coming up next, which isn't great for wide receivers. But you can probably assume he won't pull Sauce, so that's a bonus. But has Carolina week 16, which is a good matchup. So
yeah, you sound like a big DJ Chark fan after this upcoming weekend.
Yes.
Okay, you've already talked about Jared Goff a little bit, so we'll let you go down that bandwagon a little bit. 2 very good weeks in a row, but playing a very hard matchup this weekend. So what's your thoughts on Jared Goff for this upcoming playoff week?
Yeah, so back-to-back weeks, he finished quarterback 4. So he's really turning it on. But like I just said, they do have the Jets this upcoming weekend, which plays teams hard. That's going to be a tough matchup. After that, it's Carolina, then Chicago. I love him for
Those
Chicago
are great matchups.
in week 17. So maybe find someone else to put in versus the Jets if you have another quarterback sitting there. But then after this upcoming week, I love his nuts 2 matchups.
Maybe Mike White on the other side.
Maybe.
If the ribs check out, of course.
Yeah.
Jamar Chase, 10 receptions, 119 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 carry for 6 yards. He's a beast, and he's back, right?
Yeah. So he didn't even miss a step. I mean, obviously, he benefited a little bit with Higgins and Boyd both coming out early.
Is his ceiling even larger with them potentially being banged up going into the playoffs?
Yeah. I mean, he's him and Justin Jefferson are like the 2 clear-cut wide receiver ones. You're putting them in no matter what.
All right, Donovan Peoples-Jones. We were hammering him on the waiver show 5, 6, 7 weeks in a row, and he's just been highly consistent. He showed out with his creepy-ass quarterback. 8 receptions, 114 yards. Is this going to be a norm for him going forward?
Yeah. I mean, like you said, we've been on this for 6 or 7 weeks now. So obviously he's been putting up decent numbers that whole time. You've probably missed the boat on him by now.
Yeah, you're probably not going to get him. I mean, obviously go out there and look for him a little bit, but I don't think you're going to find him. Tony Pollard, also very effective this week. 10 carries for 42, 1 touchdown, 4 receptions, 20 yards, and 1 receiving touchdown. So the man is a lot of that Dallas offense in a very high-powered offense where he gets a large piece of the pie. You do really like Tony Pollard going into the playoffs as well?
Yeah, and I mean, I like Zeke too. So
you can play them both.
Yeah, Zeke finished top 10 running back this week in week 13, was running back 15 week 12. So really just outside that. I mean, they're both finishing as high-end RB2s, low-end RB1s.
It really helps to play the Houston Texans too. They're absolutely atrocious against the running game.
Yeah, but can we talk about how Dallas's defense did not show out against the Texans like every other defense?
It was so weird. They played right down to their competition's level and really just wanted to lose that game.
Yeah.
And they were celebrating in the locker room like they won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, that was weird.
That was sad. Very, very sad. And Ryan, this guy showed out, right? And you guys can win that by leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts and liking and subscribing to the show and saying you're part of the Heckling Fandom below. Fuck Patriots. I'll give you 2 reviews. He showed out for 17 carries, 144 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 reception, and 11 receiving yards. So Miles Sanders, pretty damn good for the Eagles. Crushing the Giants this week, correct?
So Miles Sanders, like I mentioned at the start of the show, top 10 running back, and faces a struggling Bears defense this upcoming week in a game that the Eagles could very easily start to run away with and just start getting in the ball, and not a good run defense to begin with. So I think he's a RB1 against the Bears.
Easily. A.J. Brown also had 4 receptions for 70 yards and 1 touchdown. He's worth every penny now, right?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. I also predicted a big week for Derrick Henry. I thought he was going to be the number 1 running back on the week. He was not the number 1 running back, but he was pretty damn good. 17 carries, 121 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 receptions for 34 yards. The Yeti is in prime form for fantasy playoffs, correct?
Yeah, it's just what we said. Last week was just a hiccup and has 2 very nice matchups coming up with the Chargers in Houston.
He's about to stomp them all out, I think.
Yep.
All right, and here is the question of the show. Trevor Lawrence's value going into the fantasy playoffs. So this week, he played excellent. 30 for 42, 368 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So is Trevor Lawrence arriving for fantasy football, and is he someone that you can stream this week comfortably against a very porous Titans secondary?
Well, the Titans he already played the Titans.
Correct.
This is what he did against them. So he is arriving, but unfortunately he's arriving at the wrong time because his next 2 games are Dallas and then the Jets. So not great matchups for quarterbacks. So I don't know if I'm looking to run out and grab him. I mean, he's probably gone, but I don't think I have a ton of faith in what he's going to do against those 2 defenses. I mean, he hasn't played a top defense since Denver in week 8, where he finished quarterback 26.
So as I worded that as a mega dumbass, do you think that was a symptom of him just playing the Titans this past weekend?
Yeah.
Not that they're coming up.
Yeah, I do. He has struggled against the top defenses. QB 30 against Philly, QB 21 back when they played Houston, QB 26 against Denver. Then he has Dallas, the Jets, and Houston coming up. So just not good matchups for him.
Except for the Texans, of course.
Well, we played the Texans week 5 and finished QB 21.
Not good, especially against such a bad defense. You don't think he can exploit the Cowboys this upcoming weekend? I mean, they didn't look that great against the Texans.
I know, but now it makes me think the Cowboys defense is going to come out with something to prove.
So nothing more than a backup option going into the playoffs?
In my opinion.
Okay. Christian McCaffrey played very well. 14 carries, 119 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 receptions for 34 yards, 1 receiving touchdowns. It seems like the big names really performed well this week. Thoughts on Christian McCaffrey going forward?
Yeah, I mean, funny story. So he has only finished outside the top 12 for running backs 4 times this year. That's insane.
And he's only been mildly banged up.
Yeah, and he's got Seattle coming up in a really good matchup. Then he's got Washington, which is a little bit of a tougher defense, but then Vegas. So you're starting him as running back 1 every week.
All right. Regardless of the injury, Tyreek Hill still had an awesome week. 4 receptions, 81 yards, 1 touchdown, then a 57-yard badass fumble recovery for a touchdown.
Yeah,
That was one of the strangest plays I think I've ever seen.
Even when his quarterback's playing terrible, he figures out how to get in the end zone. So, yeah, starting him every week.
Glad to see tanking Tua is back. My Jets are going to need it. Yeah, you have to start Tyreek. He's just a very underrated MVP candidate for the NFL. I don't think he'll win it because he's a wide receiver, but I'm going to keep banging that drum. He's been playing absolutely incredible for the Dolphins, and if they make it to the playoffs with the way Tua's playing, he may very well be worth that MVP candidacy.
It's true.
Justin Herbert looked absolutely incredible with his plethora of weapons returning. So is he going to torch the Titans next week?
Yeah. Like you just said, he's got Keenan Allen back. He's got Mike Williams back. He is 4 straight weeks of being a top 10 quarterback or better. So he is a lock against the Titans, in my opinion.
Okay. You ready to get into the bad category?
Ooh, yes. Sort of to the bad stuff.
All right. This is a little bit concerning going into fantasy playoffs. DeAndre Swift's touches went down for the Lions.
Yeah.
So what is your thoughts on this?
I mean, the run game in general was really bad for the Lions this past week, but Justin Jefferson took a bunch of the 3rd down carries, which would usually go to Swift. So Swift finished with only 6 carries. Jamal Williams with 16, Jefferson with 4. So definitely a concerning trend. And Swift owners, you got to play him, but man, it's bad.
Speaking of bad, Dalvin Cook was bad this week too. He's held to 36 yards for the Minnesota Vikings, so he's one of the only big names that didn't perform well this week. What happened with him?
I'm going to go back to what we said about Derrick Henry last week. Don't hit the panic button yet. He has much friendlier matchups coming up. He's got the Giants, the Colts, and the Packers. So I think he's going to be fine.
Yeah, I'm on to that route too. I think he'll be fine for fantasy playoffs. Joe Mixon also split carries with Samaje Perine, which led to it being a little disappointing this week. But do you want to preface this by saying as he gets more healthy, he's going to get more touches, so expect him to have some nice weeks coming up for the fantasy playoffs?
Yeah, and I mean, even splitting carries, he finished just outside RB1 territory, finished RB14. So I think you're going to see him get more usage. He does have some tough games coming up. He's got Tampa Bay, New England, Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely some tough matchups, but I think his work will increase.
Michael Carter coming off an injury was not as viable because they were easing him back in, and he also fumbled. On top of that, James Robinson is completely not an asset for fantasy football. He was inactive. So going forward, break down this Jets backfield for me. Is it Bam Knight, and does Carter have any value next week?
Yeah, I'm just going Knight. I'm just going Knight.
What is Michael Carter's long-term dynasty outlook with Knight in that backfield and Breece Hall coming back next year?
Not good unless he gets traded for some reason, or I don't know, but it's not good with Zonovan Knight emerging. Breece Hall is going to be back healthy. It's kind of a bummer because as a rookie, I mean, he showed flashes, and then just to find yourself so far down on the depth chart a year later.
Speaking of a rookie that showed flashes the last few weeks, James Cook, he was ineffective against the Jets. Was this just a matchup, or are they going away from him again?
I think it was partially matchup, but I don't like their matchups going forward anyway. I think James Cook isn't going to be used enough to be effective, but I think he's going to be used enough to make Singletary ineffective.
Mm-hmm.
And they 2 out of their 3 upcoming matchups are against the Dolphins and the Bengals, which you're going to have to assume aren't going to be very run-heavy games.
So is he sitting on the bench all the way through the playoffs for you?
Yes. Unless maybe in the Bears game, you might look at one of them. But, yeah, I don't love him.
The 3-man rotation for the Giants with that injury to Saquon's neck was highly ineffective. Are we going to see that 3-man rotation again this upcoming week?
I think it would just be monitoring Saquon, seeing if he's practicing fully by the end of the week.
Are you concerned about him for the playoffs?
I don't think so. I think him playing at least a limited role this week was reassuring. So I think he's going to be okay.
Kyle Moore's snaps continue to go down. Is he ever going to have any fantasy viability?
I don't think this season. He played 27 snaps this week. 16 of those were blocking assignments. 11 were to run routes. Not great. And I believe I saw that Kadarius Toney might be back next week. So yeah, Sky Moore, not a good option for the rest of the season.
That is a mirage you're not going to want to start. Just in my opinion, anyway.
Mm-hmm.
The Tampa Bay Bucs offense was completely inept, and Brady was nothing more than average at best. Godwin, Evans, and Fournette were all stifled. What happened against the 49ers?
Yeah, I mean, the 49ers are a good defense. They got Cincinnati coming up, which you can assume would be a high passing game. Then Arizona, which is a bit better. And then Carolina to finish it off. So I think you're going to see them bounce back, but I don't expect to see anything explosive. That's for sure.
I think out of the 3, obviously Godwin, I think, has the most upside. Evans has just been nothing but disappointing this year.
Yep.
And we saw Godwin have a 12-reception game just briefly ago. So I really do like Godwin going forward. I'm biased on Brady. We'll go with your opinion on it because you're biased a different way.
Well,
the truth is somewhere in the middle.
And it's worth noting that, Rachaad White and Leonard Fournette weren't amazing at all. They were RB2-ish.
Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely keep an eye on it.
We already talked about Jeff Wilson being hurt and Raheem Mostert getting all 9 carries in the first quarter, kind of was setting a trend. What's the viability of Jeff Wilson? I think we already covered this a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, if Jeff Wilson's out, then I definitely want Mostert. But if they're both in and playing, then I don't want either of them.
Tua Tagovailoa looked highly inaccurate against a banged-up Chargers defense, which came up and played very well. What's your thoughts on Tua for fantasy playoffs? They were talking about him as a league MVP at one point, and he's just looked like hot trash the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, he was on fire for a bit, but now it's 3 straight weeks where he's finished outside of the quarterback 1 range.
I think at one point, wasn't he like 3 for 14? It was just ugly.
Yeah, I mean, right now, overall, he's sitting at QB 13. So, I mean, he's fallen and does not have a lovely schedule at the end of the year. I mean, he has to play Buffalo next week.
Yep.
Not great. Then he's got Green Bay and New England, which is a little bit better. But yeah, if you could I'm almost saying if you can go get Goff or something, it might be better. I don't know.
If he's still out there, because everyone's banging that drum, I think, too.
Right.
Any other trash-ass players that you want to talk about from this past week?
No, I think you covered it.
All right, into the surprising category for the recap. Wow, I am going to lose this apology bet by a mile. Evan Ingram absolutely dominated the Titans. Listen, he was one of the top fantasy scorers in most formats. Absolutely incredible. Double-digit catches, 120-plus receiving yards.
I don't want.
And two or more touchdowns in this game. So what? Why?
I think I called out for him to be a breakout batch in August. I mean, granted, that was before he got traded, but I've been beating this drum since we still had 70-degree weather, which was a long time ago.
Now it's 20 degrees outside.
Yeah. Just fantastic. Has been doing significantly more work than Dan Arnold.
Bastard.
Yeah, he's definitely a viable tight end. He's probably picked up by now, though, in most year leagues.
Yeah, I would think so. And if not, good luck.
But like we talked about when we talked about Lawrence, he does have Dallas defense coming up and then the Jets defense coming up.
With that performance, he moved up to tight end 4 on the year.
Yeah. Well, the tight end position, other than the number one,
Volatile.
has been very underwhelming this year.
Yes, it has. All right, J.K. Dobbins came back with a bang. Looked damn good. First 100-yard performance since the end of 2020. Gus Edwards also got some decent carries in this game. So what's your thoughts on the Ravens backfield going forward?
Yeah, definitely reassuring to see Edwards come back and just finished RB9 this week and has some very running back friendly matchups. He's got Cleveland, Atlanta, and Pittsburgh.
Yep, and do you think that's going to be a role they need to take very seriously considering the injuries at the quarterback position for them?
I think so, and I think you could see them both be fantasy viable. Like Edwards might still have some flex appeal.
Okay. Bengals offense performed very well without 2 of their top weapons. What's this going to look like going forward?
Yeah, I'm convinced now that they're one of those offenses where if Chase is out, Higgins is going to show up, and when Higgins is out, Chase is going to show up. They're kind of injury proof right now.
Okay.
So yeah.
Here's another thing I was wrong on last week. Jameson Williams' role already expanded. So tell me what you think about his viability for the fantasy playoffs. Is it actually something that you can think about going forward?
I'm not. I mean, if you really want to take a gamble, but he only played 19% of snaps this week.
Yep.
I mean, granted, off of that, he did get a 41-yard touchdown reception, but still, that's not enough for me to say that you should definitely be starting him.
Is he going to be cutting into the Sun God's work performance next year?
Yes.
I don't know, honestly. This is a really tough one, and I think both are going to be heavily targeted in fantasy drafts next year. Zonovan Knight, freaking awesome again. 17 carries, 71 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 receptions for 6 yards against a tough Buffalo defense. Man's got piss and vinegar in his veins. Love him. Thoughts on Zonovan Knight for the playoffs?
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, he's the only running back on that team I'm looking at. But he's now 3 straight weeks of double digits. I mean, 2 weeks of finishing as an RB1 actually. So definitely a viable fantasy starter.
Especially considering he's playing the Lions this weekend.
Yes.
What's your thoughts on Chris Moore? Definitely a very surprising player to have 10 receptions for 124 yards. Is this just based on injuries for the Texans going forward? And is this one to monitor for waiver wires?
It's worth monitoring, I guess. Like if you have someone, I feel like there's been a ton of players injured these past
Nico Collins and Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, so I mean, you should definitely look at it. I still don't have full faith in his Texans offense, but if you've been hammered by the injury bug, then it's worth a look.
Yeah, we really need a crow drop for this week because here's another one I was wrong on. Chionawaku, tight end for the Titans. You said this shouldn't be in the surprising category because you called this one last too, Ryan. Just got to call you a genius for Week 13 predictions.
I had my crystal ball out for Week 13, dude. I don't know what.
Just tell me how wrong it was on him.
I gotta go back and look at what I was eating and everything because I was on point. Yeah, bat to bat, top 10 tight end weeks. I think he's a viable streaming option. I love it. Might be a little bit of a roller coaster, but I'm riding the gravy train.
Speaking of roller coasters of emotion, Jerry Jeudy, 8 receptions, 73 yards, 3 touchdowns, but still bitching up a storm on the field. Tell me about this emotional player in the surprising category.
Yeah, I mean, the Broncos getting 3 touchdowns for the whole team is surprising, let alone one player. So
I said he was going to be useless last week too.
Yeah, I mean, you can't expect it weekly. And Wilson now being out with concussion, that sounds like we're going to get Ripien. And if that's the case, then you probably just have to stay away from Jeudy, unfortunately.
All right. Jared McKinnon, this is a very surprising, decent fantasy week. 7 receptions, 112 yards, 2 touchdowns, 6 carry on 22 rushing yards. Got a lot of work. What was the formula for the Chiefs? How come this happened?
Yeah, I think they just chose that he was going to be their passing back this past week. Had 9 targets, 7 receptions, 112 yards. So there's definitely some upside going forward. It's just, I don't know how predictable it is.
Yeah, no, it was just really weird, and we'll talk about that a little bit more on the waiver show too coming up. All right, Latavius Murray seems to be handling the every down role in recent weeks, and boom, went down with an injury. Is it surprising that he's still the lead back there with Denver?
Yeah, and definitely didn't have a great week, but kind of a victim of game script. Kind of became a shootout. But if Russell Wilson's injured, Boone's injured, you could see his usage definitely go up. I'd say like flex value, maybe.
Okay. What's your thoughts on this Panthers surprising record and a chance to win their division, I guess, based on the running game? Chuba Hubbard went 14 carries for 74 yards and a touchdown, and Foreman still got 21 carries. What's your thoughts on the running game for the Carolina Panthers going forward, who are in position to win their division? What the hell is going on there?
It's just so hard.
But they have to win out, which isn't going to happen.
Hubbard 3 straight weeks of barely being in a top 50.
Mm-hmm.
And then this week just puts it on. Yeah, flip a coin and hope you're right when it comes to these two.
I still think it's Foreman. He had 21 carries in this offense. I mean, it's not an ideal situation to have either one of them, but I think Foreman's still a running back 3, in my opinion. Chuba Hubbard is just, I think, too inconsistent. Marquise Goodwin, 5 receptions, 95 yards, 1 touchdown, but he apparently can't rush the ball, -2 yards. What's your thoughts on Goodwin?
Yeah, I'm not expecting a repeat. I mean, any other time he's done this well has been when Lockett and Metcalf are out. He did manage to have a good game with them being in, but I'm flash in the pan. I'm not expecting it to happen again.
Not meant for your fantasy roster. Take that as a no. The silence.
Yes.
Mike Williams, 6 receptions for 116 and 1 touchdown off an injury. He's fresh. It looks good, correct?
Yeah, it's great to see first game back and just didn't miss a step. So yeah, I'd definitely start him.
So you got another 100-yard performance in him during this fantasy playoff run?
Sure. Why not?
Tell me about Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, looking pretty good against the GOAT, Tom Brady. Looks pretty decent in that 49ers offense, right?
Loved it. Yeah.
Question, though, is there fantasy viability here?
Yeah, I'm saying no. I definitely don't trust that on a weekly basis. The Bucs defense did awful for some reason.
Yeah, it did.
But hey, enjoy it while it's happening.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see much viability there. It's a nice story potentially going into the playoffs, but not into fantasy playoffs. So I don't think there's, as I said, much there for it. And I think with that, we really rolled through this recap. So really quick, Ryan, how do you win the Gridiron Miles Sanders card, the man that had an excellent performance this past weekend? How do you put it into your kid's stocking?
Yeah, like a video, subscribe to our channel, leave us a Apple review, preferably 5 stars.
We like that.
And leave a comment. I've joined the Heckling fandom. #GoPatriots. and I will put your name in the hat twice.
Yeah, because Ron probably won't be back unless that's actually the case. Let's go out there and ask him. What do you think, Ryan? No, you don't want me to ask the ghost?
Ask the ghost. See what he says. Who called it?
Thank you, Fantasy Spectre. He says it'll still be able to go into his dirty hat at some point during the final weeks of fantasy football, and someone will win that card. Also, make sure to like and subscribe to us here on YouTube and leave a comment down below. Join the Heckling Fandom. We are also in audio formats on Apple, Spotify, Google, Pandora, Amazon, Iheartradio, Tunein, and anywhere else you can find podcasts. Watch us live on Twitch and Twitter. Leave us messages at Garbage Time Fantasy Football on Instagram and garbage_timeff.com. And you can leave us voicemails that we play live on the show at www.garbagetimeff.com. Ryan, anything you'd like to say to the Heckling Fandom before we get out of here?
Nah, man, you crushed it.
All right, guys, good luck in your fantasy matchups and bring home some championships for the Heckling Fandom. Have a great night.